Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day number 3 of Southeast Asia DeFi Week. Now, this week, okay, we have a lot of content for you. What is Southeast Asia DeFi Week? It is an event brought to you by Access Blockchain Association of Malaysia, along with its many media partners, including Bitcoin Malaysia, Blocklime, TalkChain, ETH KL, a couple of Taiwanese media helping us as well, Grenade, Ad Media, DeFi Singapore, as well as the marketing firm Imperium Universe. What is Southeast Asia DeFi Week? It is part of a larger event called Malaysian Blockchain Month. So how it works is that every single day for 1 hour, we would bring you new educational content. Every single week, it is a different theme. Last week, we covered what are the local developments here in Malaysia. This week, we are covering everything about DeFi. Next week will be about NFTs. Following week about enterprise blockchains. Week number 5 would be about developer talent. Okay, we were going to have a lot of boot camps to train the talent here in Malaysia. And we're going to end the blockchain month with a 2-day conference called Ignite on week number 6. Whew, wow, 6 weeks of content. Why are we doing this? So, as an association, part of our mission is to grow the industry. And how we are going to do that is by defomoing the space, by doing a lot of education and helping people to experience, to enjoy the technology that is already available. And what kind of industry are we looking at? We're looking at an industry where there are digital assets that live on the internet on these decentralized networks called blockchains. And if you add if you add all of them up, they total to $250 billion last year. That was just last year. And this year, something very interesting happened. The entire industry grew to $1 trillion for the first time in January. It took 12 years to get here, but guess what? In 8 months later, it only took 8 months for us to double. That is how quick this industry is growing. It is hungry for good, talented people to a lot of opportunity here. So the question is, are you prepared? Are you prepared? How can we prepare? How can we get more Malaysians? How can we grow the region to come into this industry? So this week we're going to be talking about decentralized finance. What is decentralized finance? It is short for DeFi. DeFi, okay, it's basically tools, technology that you can use today without needing banks. So on Monday we had Ave, okay, who demonstrated to us, okay, how the protocol works, okay, lending, borrowing. On yesterday we had project from the Polygon network that is Qidao, and you could see okay how things okay a lot of the problems that you used to have okay in last year, like for example high transaction fees are solved okay in a place like Polygon. So today we have another OG for you. Okay, we're very lucky okay to have this person come in. He runs a incubator. He runs a launchpad to help okay projects to be introduced into the market. It's called Impossible Finance. But before I introduce him in, I want you to know that there is a reward, there is a prize for a lucky winner at the end of this session. All right. So we're giving away an Aave swag pack consisting of a bag and Aave socks. How do you win this? Okay, by asking questions. If your questions get picked up, okay, we're going to put you into a roulette. Okay, and one lucky draw winner will win this Aave swag pack at the end of the session. So please, okay, start okay asking meaningful questions so that they can get picked up by our guest speaker today. Also, before we begin, especially because this is DeFi week, we need to highlight very important disclaimer that none of the content shared throughout should be treated as financial and investment advice. Please use this as a completely free resource to help you hasten, quicken, speed up your learning okay into DeFi space so that you can capture opportunities for yourself. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce okay our guest speaker for today. His name is Calvin Chu from Impossible Finance. Calvin, thank you for joining us today.
Super great to be a part of the show today, and thanks for having me.
So, first question, okay, that I'd like to, can you please introduce, okay, yourself briefly about what is Impossible Finance?
Sure, yeah. So I guess, hey everyone, I'm Calvin. I spent the last 3 years at Binance Research. Maybe you might not know of me, but hopefully you've heard of some of the projects that we helped incubate and launch at Binance. Some of the most notable launchpads that we did were Matic, now Polygon, Elrond, and Axie Infinity. So it was a really awesome experience to see and help these projects grow from stage one, from even meeting I think Sandeep at a hackathon for Matic and seeing them grow all the way to where they are today. So we're able to do continue a lot of what we were doing at Binance with Impossible Finance, which is a decentralized incubator, launchpad, and swap. So we just want to take it one step further of a lot of the projects that we were working with, previously, to help build them from kind of DeFi first approach. So what that kind of entails is that we're not a classic Y Combinator type of thing where there's like seasonal cohorts, because DeFi has no time to wait for your winter cohort. We want to build, iterate, and support project teams at whatever stage they are at, and constantly fill a launchpad pipeline for projects to be able to be invested in for retail users like you guys. That's what we did as our bread and butter when we first launched the Launchpad product at Binance, and we think that it's only the right thing to do to continue building up the infrastructure for supporting the next wave of DeFi projects.
Okay, so this is very interesting because I did a little bit of read up, okay, about impossible finance before this. And one of the things that I realized that is a differentiator for what you're building is that number one, made it very clear that yours is a launchpad to help projects immediately go multi-chain from day one. Can you please elaborate on that?
So I think maybe my connection is not super great. Sorry about that. Could you repeat the last part of the question again?
Yes. So I did some reading before this. And one of the key things that I learned about Impossible Finance that is different, okay, from other launchpads is that Impossible Finance is a multi-chain launchpad, help projects to launch on multi-chains, okay, from day one. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's a core part of our strategy. Right now, we're starting on BSC, but we're also supporting, very quickly some other platforms as well, such as Polygon, Moonbeam, Ethereum, of course, and other EVM chains. Part of it is that we think about all these different blockchains as countries, and you want to not just invest in the next Uber, but the decentralized Uber, or I guess you could say the multinational Uber is much more valuable than just a certain country's Uber. And to us, it's really important because of how much this space is still growing, that projects don't anchor themselves just to one ecosystem or one community. By being able to launch to a wider user base, it's something that is able to hopefully give them stronger footing, and that you can kind of test and see which ecosystems make the most sense for each project, right? So what we call to kind of think about this in like a kind of mental model is a ice cream truck model. Crypto is too new right now for us to just set up a store in a suburb and hope everyone will come to the suburbs just for us. Instead, we should drive the ice cream truck to all the neighborhoods that users are in, and make sure that if they happen to like ice cream, hopefully we give them the best shot at being able to purchase the ice cream, right? And that's the same logic that we have for this launchpad, that by being able to have these tokens available in as many different chains that you have, we don't want you to have to keep on bridging assets from these different wallets or download brand new wallets to touch some of these different chains. You should be able to sit back and relax, and if you hear the ice cream truck song drive by,
Yeah.
that maybe that it's time for you to participate.
Okay, so I want to pick your brain a little bit because I find your background very, very interesting. Your background was you helped Binance, okay, with their Launchpad program and staking program as well. Can you share with the audience what, in your opinion, because there are so many of them, what, in your opinion, makes a bad Launchpad?
Yeah, I don't want to speak badly of other platforms, but I'd say
No names, no
the
names, no names,
I
no
think the
names.
important thing to measure any type of launchpad platform, it's in two sides. One is to project teams in a quote unquote to B sense. And then another sense is to C, to the customer or end consumer that's trying to participate in these launchpads. And so I'd say for the user side, what matters the most is a combination of fairness, accessibility, and quality. I'd say are the three metrics that project teams need to handle. And usually it's very difficult to handle all three of these. So for example, you could have a platform that only sells really bad secondhand projects, right? Things that nobody really wants, but they're accessible, right?
Mm,
It's kind of like a good restaurant is like it needs to be affordable. It doesn't have like long waits in line, and it's safe or healthy to eat, right? There's a lot of things that are not healthy or not yummy, and so then there's no line, right? So they're accessible, but do you really want to go to a place that no one else wants to go to? That's also kind of not the point, right? But then if you have like a really good restaurant, maybe if it's Michelin star, everyone's waiting in line for it. So then you can't let the retail guy that just wants to have a good meal to come, right? So the prices go high, you might have to wait for months. It's just not really a good experience as well for the regular person. And
mm,
then, the question is, if there's like a local joint that is available, it might not be the best quality or might not, be something where it's coveted, right? So then it's like a McDonald's. So it's available. You can always eat it, but it's nothing that you are super excited about. It's just always kind of there. And I think that's like the hard problem that all launch pads need to kind of, I think, struggle with. Because it's not easy to be perfectly kind of scalable or open to every person, but also maintain really high quality and make sure that it's a very fair process. So I'll say, for example, like, I think a lot of people have seen these images of CoinList where a lot of people go to like an internet cafe and then
yep.
try to access the window with like 100 different screens and try to get an advantage over other folks because it's a first.
Really? Is that what they do? Okay, got it. Now I know why I didn't get any allocation on CoinList.
So that's an example where we would say it's a fair process, right? You can't blame, or maybe I should say it's an accessible process because everyone understands the rules. It's first come,
Mm,
first serve, and if you happen to, click on these things faster than other people, then you deserve it. I don't think people
right.
don't think that's fair, but the thing is that people can find other ways to try and circumvent the quote unquote team rules, if you will, of the game, such that I've heard, at least from individual experience, a lot of folks, do not actually get allocation despite waiting in line or trying to participate in these sales. And that's the question of, even though I think CoinList has done a very good job of selecting some high quality projects, I would
Yep.
say it's a little bit like a Michelin star restaurant. The regular guy that wants to be a part of the launch pad, he basically won't ever be able to get a reasonable allocation. And that's something where it's still not a bad launch pad, but it is not a full launch pad or what we believe can be the most beneficial for both users and for project teams. In particular, the goal that we see with launch pads is that it kills two birds with one stone. It helps project teams raise funds, but also bootstraps the early user base of these platforms, right? And so maybe this is where I should mention a little bit of like the 2B side of things for a launchpad. This is also the reason why, as you mentioned, we are also an incubator. We don't think that the launchpad process should be quote unquote a sale platform. We should be a scale platform. Everything we do is about trying to make sure that we're building things in a sustainable manner, such that we help a project team before the launch to be a lot more, you could say, polished, but most importantly, give users the sense that this is a trustworthy project to, again, solve part of that quality problem. But at the underlying kind of structure, we need to make sure that these project teams are continually thinking about where they can be in the next 3 to 5 years, not just how well can they perform post-launch in terms of price. So some of the best launch pads that we did, things like Axie or Matic, they weren't overnight successes, and they're also not something where we like talk to them like 2 days earlier, and then we decide to launch them. In fact, it's obviously I don't want to say that the process of pregnancy is not easy, but I would use that as an analogy, because we actually really did spend almost 9 months for both Matic and Axie Infinity from start to launchpad day, where we tweaked tokenomics, we created new staking structures, thinking a lot about how to bring on new users, think about even literally even the ticker symbol, all the small things that we could try and make sure that we prepared in the right way. We did that. And that's the thing that I think a lot of launchpads don't realize. I'm writing the playbook, hopefully for other folks to copy this, because I think it's the right way to build. But that it's really important that as a platform, we actually take the learnings that we have absorbed from launching so many projects to go on and help the next projects try to avoid some of these types of issues, right? Even if it's as small as like Matic chose the ticker symbol Matic. And at that point in time, there were very few tokens that had 5-letter tokens, token symbol. So we actually even had to tell our Binance backend team to go fix how we wrote tickers, because I think at that point in time, we only had 4-letter ticker symbols, right? Things like that. You'll never imagine how many small, I'll say like hiccups that you run into after making a decision. And it's up to a launchpad to really be kind of a first-line defender to support these project teams in every single way possible. And I think that level of support, when you do a launchpad that just kind of churns out sales, you'll never be able to focus enough to really support these projects in the long run. And then you're not incentivized to see, where is Matic 2 or 3 years later, or where is Axie Infinity 2 or 3 years later. And that when you see something like Axie or Matic now, they have now reached, I think, both respectively something like 2000x. So that's 200,000% return over the last 2.5 years. And that's the upside, I think, that draws a lot of us towards crypto, not just trying to do some quick flips. Because if you did one of these things, this could be your complete retirement, right? And that's the way that we want to build for the long term. And that's the same, success stories that we want to continue, writing for the future.
Got it. So I, got a lot of takeaways from this. The first thing that I got is that when we look into a launchpad, what you're aiming for is to create a much more fair outcome, not just only a fair process, okay, when it comes to a launch. So by going through a launch pad, that is what Impossible Finance tries to strive for, okay, which is to create a fair outcome. That's the first thing. The second thing that I took away also is that many people view launch pads as just a platform to token sale. You come to my launch pad, we help you sell tokens. We generate hype, and we help you to sell tokens. But what is interesting that I took from you is that you have a very different viewpoint, okay, on how a launchpad should be. A launchpad should not just be a sale platform, but be a scale platform. And the process, okay, that it takes in order to help ensure that the project is sustainable was, in some cases, as you said, 9 months long. Ooh, so my next question perhaps would be this. Can you share with us how do you choose, what makes a project, okay, better than others? How do you choose, okay, has Impossible Finance, okay, I have not used, now that you have shared about Impossible Finance, I would really like to have experienced at least, okay, one of your launches so that I can see for what it is. I read that there was one project that has been launched through Impossible Finance. Can you share how it went? Was it to your satisfaction?
Yeah, so I guess let me touch on a couple of things here. First, for anyone that wants to try to learn more, you can always visit our product at impossible.finance. And so we do have a swap and a launchpad. Via the launchpad, we actually launched our own token. So dog fooding ourselves was the first thing we did. And then we just completed yesterday the full process of launching our first project that is external called OpenSwap. You can also check their product at openswap.xyz. And I think the question about picking a good project is a hard one to answer. And obviously, if it was super easy, then everyone would have great quality, right? And I think I'll maybe talk a little bit about the OpenSwap experience as well, because I think it's a good illustration of why good is never a textbook answer. It's really something where it takes time to realize what you have in the pipeline. And this is also the reason why we go with this type of incubator type structure, because we do think it's very important for us to spend time to evaluate the projects and do the due diligence for the users, and then take our learnings and our pattern recognition from past opportunities to hopefully be able to make sure that we put ourselves in front of the right opportunities for our users. So OpenSwap was a project team that we first spoke to, again, about 9 or 10 months ago. And at that point in time, they were thinking about trying to build some things on Ethereum mainnet. And we said, whoa, who are you trying to target? And they said, retail users. And then we asked them, are retail users spending hundreds of dollars in gas fees on Ethereum? And then they paused. And that's something where if a traditional platform, they might say, that's a bad idea. I'm not going to work with you. And whereas Impossible says, nothing's impossible. We're going to figure out some way to make this happen. It might not be overnight, but it's something that we will want to monitor progress, continue evaluating. It's never a hard reject, but rather a prove us wrong, figure out why we can't do this today and what you can do better than where you were yesterday. And so at first they were doing some liquidity aggregation. So maybe you've used things like 1inch or Matcha, so on and so forth, OpenOcean. There's many products in this, I'd say, kind of crowded space. And so then we said, okay, are you better than these things right now? Maybe not. These other things, maybe they split their trades across 40% sushi and 60% uni, right? Things like that. And they didn't have this feature. So we said, why don't you have this feature? What do you think is something that is preventing you from doing this? And is there a better way to make users get better prices? And so these are the types of questions, and through this type of iterative process, we continue to both grill these projects, but challenge them to get better over time. And so the way that this team responded and continued to overcome any of the challenges that they had, that's something that gave us a lot of trust in saying that these guys aren't going to just stop at shipping one product and then taking it easy. They really cared about trying to solve these types of problems for the end user, and they took all of the constructive criticism that we gave them into positive energy towards building new things. And so each time we chatted with them, there's new ideas that would come up, new ways that they could solve some of our problems. And so we see them as a perpetual partner in the swap space to be able to continue to launch new products and solve user pain points. And that's something that a good project should do. And that's not something that you'll find out from a speed dating, that you really need to dig deep into their code, understand how this team works, how they think about problems from a product perspective, and how they eventually present that to the end user. So, it's also not something where it's something that should be polished on day one. If this project is polished on day one, it's probably too expensive and you can't afford it, right?
Yes.
Or that they don't want investors anymore, they're already oversubscribed, so on and so forth. And Correct. It really is this process of finding the hidden gems or these diamonds that you think can be built under pressure.
Diamonds in the rough. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's something that Impossible, really enjoys doing. And that's something that we think is most valuable, because at the end of the day, we want to change the trajectory of what some of these projects do. We don't want easy things. We want to do things the right way, even if it takes longer over time. But it means that some of these projects that maybe other investors or Silicon Valley, I'll kind of put a target at, maybe would laugh at. But this is the thing where Impossible is very open-minded in trying to support these project teams for the long run. And it gives us essentially more chances to stay in the game for each of these different projects. I think I'm not a very good poker player, but I like this poker analogy of trying to stay in as many hands as possible. It's actually
Mhm.
very affordable to stay in a pot of betting on project teams that just want to have a chance. And a lot of different investors, I'd say, kind of fold their hands really early. They just give up
Mm.
on these projects, don't want to look at what's going on, and they move on to other things. Whereas
Right.
we'd rather say, let's have as many hands on the table as possible. If we happen to have 12 seats, whereas all the other investors are maybe overly selective, they'll never hit something with their hands because they already left the table too early. And that's where we want to take on that risk on behalf of users. And then when we have a good hand, that's what something we will, play those hands for our users and let our users have that opportunity to invest.
I am I would echo with that. It sounds like okay that you, because of the process, okay, the way how you incubate these projects as well, uh, you see a different layer, okay, that a lot of people don't see. Some people also ask me a similar question, like Jason, how do you, evaluate projects and stuff like that? Mine is actually very simple, but it's not kind of like written in the textbooks, right? For me, it's like, do people deliver their promises? It's just as simple as that. So when I look at a team, right, and they have milestones, and even if they don't work, but if they are accountable, that is like a huge tick for me, okay, that this actually, has people behind it, right, that actually can make it work. So I'm really, really, yeah, impressed actually. Can I ask a question, okay, about how the launch, how did it go? Has it happened yet? The OpenSwap launch?
Yeah, so the launch actually happened last night. So I actually haven't checked the price, but the last night I think it hit a peak of about 12x and then settled around a 6x price of where our users participate in the sale at. So obviously we don't want to measure ourselves just on day one, but I think
Yeah.
it is a good sign that people are really excited about its project. But we're actually even more excited about the features that they will be rolling out in the next month and a half, and what we will be able to use ourselves from these products to actually go back to what you said about this accountability and the trustworthiness of these projects. One of the things that I'll kind of leak here, I don't think we've actually said exactly what they offer, but thanks for having me. So hopefully all of the users get a little bit of special intel ahead of
Mhm.
time. But one of the best
Mm.
use cases, I think, of what OpenSwap will be able to do is these types of liquidity queues, or you can think of them as conditional orders. So you can set orders that automatically, kill themselves after, let's say, 7 days,
Mm.
or whatever it might be. And this is actually a beautiful way to do something of essentially what is like a purchase buyback or like a your money back guarantee. If let's say you bought something for $1 and you think it should be worth $1, and this project team thinks they're worth $1, they can do something where they say, you know what, in 1 month from now, if we're not back at $1, we'll buy it back for $1, and put their money where their mouth is. So this is a very interesting kind of tool that we may use for future, I'll say, more higher risk projects that we may offer some buyback offers in the secondary market after the launch to give people even more peace of mind to say, you know what, all these projects that are coming from Impossible or OpenSwap, whatever it might be, if they're doing this, they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're using blockchain's transparency and verifiability to show that these guys aren't running anywhere. They're here to buy it back if things fail, or maybe it's at, like, let's say, a 70% of the original price. Then the worst you can lose is 30%. And that is something that we think is really important, because there's a lot of people that cannot afford to lose money on these types of
Yep.
early project teams. We want to, as the name of this thing is, access, right? I think access
Yes.
is really important. And if we just create a lot of launch pads that have this kind of hype of 5 to 10x returns, you
Mhm.
ignore the chances of some things failing sometime, right?
Mm.
And trying to paint a picture where things will only go up is never something that is sustainable. And we want to
Yes.
make sure that we create as many different opportunities to really make sure that this is something that you know our parents or our family, we feel safe giving to them this type of
Right.
opportunity to invest. And these are the
Got it.
types of tools that we really love, that OpenSwap has thought a lot, very carefully about how these types of very technical on-chain products can actually be stuff that allows blockchain to be used in what I would call blockchain's most killer app, which is trust. That you can use smart contracts and their structured nature to actually have a lot of predictability and trustworthiness that extends beyond just my promise or my offer to say this is a good launchpad, right? My word, maybe you trust it, but I think it means a lot more if I say, I'm going to buy back all the OpenSwap tokens 90 days from now if you guys decide to dump it, because I think it's undervalued, and if you sell, you're wrong, right? I think Sam
Right.
Bankman-Fried had a tweet the other day, or
Yes,
like
yes, about
a
Solana, right?
while back, about Solana, right?
Yeah.
That was a tweet, but it only has his, skin in the game, in the sense that he looks dumb, or maybe he'll delete the tweet, right? If he's wrong, right, or if he doesn't actually follow through. But we can do that with our beautiful blockchain technology to
On
actually go
OpenSwap.
and put our mouth on our money, where our money is, right? Our money where our mouth is. Yeah, that's the phrase, right? And that's the kind of thing where, as a launchpad, we're just not going to stop at saying, oh, we think we do a pretty good launch. We think that the right approach of this launch to really scale is something that happens before the launch, right? As you can see with these types of 9-month incubation, we're not afraid of making sure the time is right to launch these things. But then even after the launch, we're not just going to go away and say, oh, that thing already was a success. So I actually won't answer your question of was this launch a success, because I want to see where OpenSwap is 2 years from now. And that's when maybe I want to say, was this a
Right.
success or not?
Right. Okay. So maybe let me be a little bit more specific. Okay. First and foremost, hashtag few understand. Okay, with what you just covered. Hashtag few understand. Um, maybe let me rephrase the question. We're just going to ignore the fact, okay, that the token price is like type what 6x, 12x that there's definitely a lot of people viewing in right now, including myself, might feel a little bit jelly and a little bit salty. Let's just ignore that for a bit. I, I think let me rephrase the question. In your opinion, right? Can you use OpenSwap as the example, the OpenSwap launch? Okay, to how is that done in a much more fair manner through Impossible Finance? Can you describe that to us? Was it fair? Was the launch fair in your opinion?
So we have a couple things where I'll say we're still working on trying to make it even more
Yes.
accessible. I would say we were fair, but that it could be even more accessible. So the
Right.
way that we do our launch is that users stake the IDIA token, which
Mm,
stands for the Impossible Decentralized Incubator Access token. So we love access. And so from there, users basically get a staking calculation where the more you stake for a longer period of time, the larger your proportional share in the amount fundraised, goes to you in terms of an allocation. So what this means is that obviously someone that holds a lot of tokens as a whale, they might have the opportunity to get more tokens than someone else
right.
who has less or stakes for a shorter period of time. And
Got it.
so one way that we have tried to make this a little more fair is that we actually separate the sale into two halves. So right now, the percentages are never fixed, but that we essentially can do this in a very money Lego style, where a sale is actually an aggregation of multiple sales. And so we actually technically on chain had 4 sale contracts. The way that we did this was there were some whitelist campaigns for $50 and $100 allocations based on users participating in AMAs or community events, so that we're rewarding people that were genuinely trying to learn about these projects. We also have a KYC process to prevent bots from trying to just eat up all of these kinds of allocations. So hopefully real individuals are the ones that are getting these allocations, not just one guy sitting with 500 computers at an internet cafe. But that the last part is that because we split the pool into 2 parts, we call it a standard sale and an unlimited sale. The larger players essentially have to fight against the larger players, just like in boxing, you have different weight tiers. This is
Right.
how we made it such that the little guys that stake only have to fight against a maximum staking amount that amounted to something like, I think it was $1,000 or $5,000. So that somebody that had $50,000, they have to go fight in their tier. Whereas the guys that
Mm,
fight inside the 5,000 or less tier, they at least have a little bit more of a level playing field. So I won't
got
say that
it.
it's a perfect solution, but it is a solution that I feel like is a simple step in the right direction. And as a team, we're continuing to try to figure out if there are even more better ways to fine tune this. I don't want to call that a success yet, because we
Yeah.
are actively thinking a lot more about how to make this even more sophisticated. But as
Mm.
a Occam's razor type of solution in the short run, it's something that did allow for a lot more individuals to get a larger allocation than what they might get on some other platform.
Okay, my two takeaways is number one, how the launch has been done, okay, in Impossible Finance to make it more fair is that there is access tokens, right? So when people have get these access tokens, they would have allocations, okay, and but it's not just that. There's also like two separate pools, and also have a mechanism where basically whales fight whales, so that whales don't, fight with the little guy, right? That kind of weightage. Now, let me pivot because I would like to go into the public Q&A as well. But do want to know a little bit, okay, about how is Impossible Finance decentralized? So, a lot of the times, okay, incubators are centralized. Basically, there's a team, okay, you go there for consulting, they sit down with you, etc. Uh, Impossible Finance is a decentralized uh, launchpad and incubator. How does that work?
Yeah, so what that means is that we focus on product first teams. We want things that actually have a project that you can log in with your MetaMask or any wallet and just participate, because we think that DeFi projects actually can bootstrap much faster than centralized projects. Because even for like a new exchange, right? If I were to build a Binance clone, you would have to trust that I'm not going to steal your funds. In DeFi, you might not be able, if you're not technical, to review code, but you can have some other friend of yours that knows some code to go check exactly the logic of how my product works. And I think that's very powerful to be able to give that opportunity to the end user to check, if these types of things can be, hacked, or maybe a trapdoor, whatever these things are. So we like the thesis of calling this an open kitchen. If you don't like
Mhm.
the ingredients behind the glass, you can choose not to eat at my restaurant. But I want to make sure that
Ah,
I show everything right on the table, so you know where it's coming from, right? If you think all of my ingredients aren't fresh, then don't play, right?
got it.
Uh, and I think that's really the power of what we like about this type of more decentralized aspect to it, rather than a centralized platform that would ask users to deposit all the funds into our custodial wallets and then handle all of this type of custody stuff for them. It's less headache for us actually, but it's also something that gives more power to the user. If you don't like what I do, you can always just take your funds out of your smart contract. You don't need to trust me to do withdrawals or other things. And it's actually better because it keeps me on my toes. If I don't do a good job, you can very easily move your funds over to some other platform and start doing
Yes.
something else, another launchpad.
Yes.
So that's the challenge and the kind of fire that we want to be under at all times, because it will keep us the most accountable in trying to build the best incubator in the long run.
Right. So my next question is this power represented by the Impossible Finance token?
Yeah, so I think we have an article on our Medium about our kind of progressive decentralization towards becoming a full-on DAO. Obviously, at the early stages, we do have a lot of points of centralization. We're still controlling or curating a lot of the projects that are coming through the pipeline. But in the future, we hope to be just one of many teams that are bringing in new deal flow into our launchpad. And that was also part of the reason why in our seed sale, we brought on over 125 strategic investors with a lot of names that are funds that you guys might recognize or project teams that you might recognize. And that was also so that then in the future, we hope to also be strategically aligned with a lot of these protocols, ecosystem funds, or other on-chain investment vehicles that have the goal of bringing on new talent and new projects into the space, so that it can be an open platform where many kind of sources of projects can come to one platform where users can enjoy the ice cream, right? Our ice cream truck wouldn't be very good if we only have one flavor of ice cream. So if we really want to make sure that we bring on all the possible projects in this space, we need to have as many different quote unquote suppliers as we can. So it's obviously not a process that happens overnight, but it is something that we are very kind of optimistic about, being able to eventually give more and more power to the token holders and be able to allow for certain things to be fully decentralized in process via our governance on Snapshot. Snapshot.org/impossible finance, I believe, is the URL for you guys to check. Or I think also gov.impossible.finance also works. So we'll be trying to offer up more of the things that we want to kind of decide as a community to token holders. And that's something that, again, it's not something that we can say we've already succeeded, but rather something that we know is an ever-going challenge to make sure that the community is heard in the voices and the ideas that they have. The other way that we've actually also started to decentralize some things is we're actually using a project called Collabland. That's COLLAB.land. And they essentially do token permission chats. So we actually have users who simply hold about $400 worth of our tokens to authenticate with their MetaMask or whatever their favorite wallet is, to say, I am a token holder. And so they get access into this kind of strategic club, if you will, where they're able to just simply speak their minds, complain to us, or ask if they have any ideas that they think are valuable to growing our project. And some of the ideas that we've already been able to implement come from these avid fans that have really jumped in and been very, very supportive of us from day one. And none of us, we don't even know what countries these people are from, where they live, what they do. They've just been very open, welcoming us with open arms. And that's exactly how I think these types of DeFi communities really build from square one. So we're really fortunate to have some of these folks, so active, and we hope to bring on even more folks to have that voice and be a part of our journey.
Okay, I think we need to answer some of the public's questions right now, because I want to keep time. So let me go through the questions. Maybe this one. Seeing that there are many pump and dump process repeatedly happen in a new project in a launchpad, what is actually the impact, of pump and dump to the project?
Yeah, great question. A pump and dump is like a short-term stay, but if you own a property, you actually want long-term rent, right? Or some sort of commercial deal that locks in this space, right? The problem with all these pump and dumps is that whether you're the project team itself or an investor affiliated with this project or the incubator that launches, you have a lot of collateral damage. What matters in the long run is, can you make money, and bring on new users and scale what you're doing, right? The scale not sale comment that I said earlier. And if, I'm a very econ stat driven guy, it's what I studied in school and kind of what I did a lot of research in. And if you think about it, if somebody is really long-term in this space, the amount of money that you can make from pumping and dumping one project is finite. The amount of money that you can make from launching hundreds of projects over the next 5 to 10 years, that's a lot more than what you can make by flipping and leaving, tens of projects here. I was lucky enough to see this type of wave and cycle for a lot of exchanges that popped up and listed any random thing that they were getting paid to do back in 2018. And so that's why at Binance, I helped build a listing framework to do some of the quality control. And it's very clear that now today, Binance is a name that a lot of folks know, and a lot of the other exchanges that made a lot of money pumping and dumping tokens early, they are not around anymore. So, I think that there are a lot of people that they might say they're profit driven, and then they do a lot of pump and dump esque things. But in reality, I'll say it's actually a bad game, and they're just bad at math or econ. If they really think about it, being long term is the best value that you can do for yourself and for the space.
Okay, next question, but from Easy Money. Do you require a project in your launchpad to be non-anonymous? And what do you think is the next big thing for the crypto industry, if you want to answer that one?
Yeah, the two great questions. So obviously everyone's talking a lot about NFTs. So I'll put one prediction on something related to NFTs and one not related to NFTs. In the NFT space, I think there's still a lot of infrastructure that is missing, whether that's financialization of NFTs. I think a lot of people are starting to talk about fractionalization. You can't afford now a whole CryptoPunk because it's like 100 something ETH, but you can't afford buying part of it, right? That's why Bitcoin was so popular, because you don't have to buy one whole Bitcoin. You can buy some Satoshis, right? And so I think the Satoshi-ification of these NFTs that are rare and some of the most OG projects, that will be something that will onboard the next wave of folks that participate in these ecosystems. And on the flip side of that, we see with the Visa announcement buying the CryptoPunk or other things, there's still a lot that has not been done yet to make the custody or the wallet process to make holding expensive crypto or art possible, right? Like the art galleries, they spend a lot of money on security, surveillance, trying to make sure that no one steals the Mona Lisa, right? There's nothing like that in crypto right now. And so there's, I think, still a lot of these types of infrastructure related things where the NFT market has clearly grown really fast, but the infrastructure to maintain $1 billion project, even if you $1 billion ecosystem, if you think about it, it's just like insurance, right? If you do insurance for, I don't know, little league baseball team, probably not very valuable. If you do insurance for Cristiano Ronaldo's leg, it's probably kind of valuable, right? So I think that there's going to be a lot more of these types of infrastructure related plays around the NFT market rather than NFT profile picture projects that launch another 10,000 of them. I don't know if that's the best bet to ape into, but that playing for things that, given that people really do love this intersection of art and digital kind of mediums like blockchain, I do think that it is very important to start investing in protocols in this type of kind of sector. So we're super excited to be able to share later this month a few of the projects up our sleeve in this kind of sector. Outside of the NFT space, I think it's very powerful to look at this proliferation of all these different layer twos or other smart contract platforms, whether that be layer one or layer two. In particular, we're starting to see so many of these ecosystem funds pop up to start supporting project teams, such as Phantom with their 370 million, Cello with their 100 million, Harmony also announced a large one. Polygon's been very active. I think this is really powerful because now that these project teams have some ecosystem treasuries and their token valuations are meaningful, this is where you reinvest in yourself and your ecosystem. And that is what will onboard the next wave of ideation and creation in the space. So I'm very excited for each of these different project teams to be able to reinvest in ecosystems.
NFTs, sidechains, layer twos.
Yep.
The other part of the question is, do you require the project teams to be non-anonymous in your launchpad?
Yeah. So obviously, anonymity is something that for some folks is a deal breaker in terms of trust, right? There are a lot of retail users that don't want to bet on things that have no name or skin in the game from a profile picture, right? But it is also something where if you think about how this space started, right, we still don't know who Satoshi is, right? And some of the best projects, whether that be like Sushi or other folks, like there are a lot of really good projects these days that, does it really matter that you've never sat down next to Andre, right? There's videos of him, there's a live Twitter, but how much is it different if Andre was just a super shadowy coder versus a guy that has a profile picture from South Africa, so on and so forth, right?
Yes.
And that's an open question that to us, like where as an economist, we'd say, let the market price how valuable that is. So Impossible is open-minded to anonymous projects. And for some project teams, we realize that whether it's folks that are originating from certain countries that are not very open-minded towards crypto and blockchain tech, or they may have some tax reasons or other personal reasons as to why they cannot share, such as non-compete or no ability from their current employer's contract to work on outside projects. There's a lot of legitimate reasons why a very smart or hardworking individual cannot attach their name to what they're building. And in certain cases, based on our diligence, we will be open-minded to project teams that are anonymous. We just need to make sure that we have enough information to understand that this guy isn't going to go anywhere, because of course, there's no guarantee that, even you could imagine that, if some guy that was anonymous decided to switch seats, right? Like a twin brother, if you will, you have no way to know if that guy just switches seats with some other guy that now uses his Telegram. And, it would really suck for us if we bet on this anonymous LeBron James and we turned out it was a 60-year-old retired LeBron James, not, prime LeBron James, right? So that's something where we want to make sure that we do our diligence in working with these project teams. So we'll never say no, just like we said with this type of incubation process, but that, again, investing is a trust-based game. And if a individual or project team that is anonymous does not do things that inspire trust in us, it will be a lot harder to overcome that.
Okay. Next question from Simon. How do you put a value on how much the token starting value should be when a new launchpad project?
Yeah, this is a great question. Do you know what the price of Microsoft was or Apple was 20 years ago?
No, personally, no.
Do you take that into consideration when you decide whether or not you want to buy a new MacBook or a Surface Pro or an iPhone?
Nope, I do not. I do not take that into consideration what the Apple price is if I want to buy a MacBook.
Yep. So I think that's actually the same exact answer that I would give to this. If this thing is about price, then maybe it's a question for investors, but it's not a question for the users. The investors should be making an investment based on whether or not these users and the value accrual that this system may have, based on the services or goods it provides to that end user. And so if the user is still making a decision that is not dependent on price, in a traditional econometrics comment, I would put this as a zero weight factor in my regression models, right? It has nothing to do with the end user, so it doesn't affect the value that I see in it in 3 years from now, so that I wouldn't use it whatsoever to measure a project.
Okay, we have only 5 minutes left and so many other questions. Okay, we're going to speed run through this one. Okay, so how do projects who are interested to get listed on Impossible Finance reach out to you?
Yep. Yeah, so there's a couple parts of this question I think are really good. The first is that you can apply to projects. As projects, you can apply on our website at impossible.finance/apply. So it's just a simple Google form just to collect a little more information from each project. That's kind of how the conversation gets started. With regards to any kinds of fees or maybe a little bit more on our business model, what we care most about is that we have reasonable skin in the game to spend time with the project. A lot of fees are more designed towards consultation or this type of one-off kind of thing. But as you mentioned, it doesn't really make sense for us to sign a contract for something if we're really going to spend 9 months before launch and forever after, right? It's kind of like marriage, right? So in that sense, you're not really trying to just take some sort of listing fee and then run away. So for us, it matters a lot more about can we either co-invest, earn some tokens as advisory, or build something long-term such that we hit certain KPI options, then we're able to earn more upside in the project team. So that's usually how we work. We don't care about stable coins. We want to have a percentage or skin in the game in what you're building. Because if you think about it
Right.
this other way, if we hold, let's say, 1% of a total token supply for a project team, if I put a lot of our effort into building up your project, I make $1 for every $99 that you make from my hard work. I actually don't think that's very fair, but that is something that I think is valuable and positive expected value for the entire space. So that's part of the reason why we want to make sure that we have as much skin in the game, so that then it makes sense for us to devote a lot of our efforts into building up each of these projects.
Okay. Barry asks, if a project gets rejected by the launchpad, would the reasons be disclosed?
Yeah. So yes, there's no point in saying no and then not giving any reason why.
Yeah.
So it's really important for us to just be very blunt about it. And sometimes, obviously, we get busy. Things will slip through the cracks, but we do try to make sure that we at least give some sort of answer or give some sort of feedback, because just like I said earlier, we don't want to give up on anybody, but rather it's really a question of how do we prioritize our time so that our end KPI is how many great projects can we offer to our users. And if we spend a lot of time with projects that we think have 0.0001% chance to be a great project, it's not a very efficient spend of our time. But that we don't want to shut down that zero, because that 0.0001% might become 5%, 10%, 20%, over the long run. And that's something that, like I said earlier with the poker analogy, we don't want to fold too many cards.
Okay, last question. Have you announced any upcoming projects of your Launchpad, and where can they find information like this?
Yeah, well, we will always share more on our Medium blog posts, as well as our Twitter and Telegram channels. So I'll probably send over some more links for Jason to share later on. And in general, we're very reachable on Twitter and Telegram. So feel free to just ask questions in our Telegram, Discord, whatever it might be. And we're happy to share more.
All right. So with that, okay, I'd like to thank Calvin. Thank you so much for spending the entire hour to introduce us, okay, to what you're doing, as well as understand the differences that you're making, as well as answering all these questions, okay, that the community has. Um, I personally, okay, I'm looking forward to be a user of Impossible Finance myself. Thank you so much, okay, for being here today.
Really appreciate the time as well. And hopefully the rest of the conference goes super great. And I'm really excited to watch a lot more of the other shows very soon, this week and month soon as well.
Thanks, Calvin. So,
Cheers.
so without further ado, okay, that's the end of day number 3. If you have not claimed your proof of attendance token yet, please join the Discord channel, get the secret code, okay, from the pin message, DM the secret code to the POAP bot, and claim your Pope token. Also, there are still some tickets left. Okay, early birds get their free tickets for the 2-day conference of Ignite. So do that early, okay, before they get sold out. All right, so it's now time to give away the RV swag pack. How we're going to do this is I'm going to share my screen, window, share window. Right. So we have put down the names. So we have 5 names. Okay, 5 names here, and that's 20% chance, okay, to win the swag pack. I'm going to spin right now. Good luck, everyone. All right. Congratulations, Simon Pang. Okay, please DM me, okay, your full name, mobile number, and shipping address. Okay, because remember that we do not DM you, okay? That's a rule. We don't DM people, okay? You need to DM us that. Please do that by Friday in order to claim your prize. If not, I'm forced to give your prize away. So with that, okay, done. Please come back, okay, tomorrow for the next on an agenda. Same time, 5 p.m. tomorrow. We are doing tomorrow's session, okay, will be interesting. It will be for beginners, okay? Making sense of DeFi. I will be helping, okay, guide you to 2 years, okay, of learning DeFi in just 30 minutes. All right, so it's gonna be fun. If you're a beginner, want, okay, like a really, really quick crash course, okay, how do you make sense of the DeFi yields? What's there to look forward to? Etc. Why, okay, these things happen, etc. All these important jargons and terms that you need to know. I'm going to compact that, okay, into 30 minutes, okay, and then we're going to have like another 30 minutes to answer all your questions. It's going to be really interactive, really fun. So see you back here tomorrow on day number 4. And once we have done that, then day number 5 on Friday, we have Hanaya from Zappify, okay, to close out Southeast Asia DeFi week, okay, because Zappa basically makes your life really, really easy once, okay, you learn how to use DeFi. So really, really excited for the content, okay, for the next 2 days. A gentle reminder to all of you that tonight, okay, there is a Bitcoin for beginners. This is for absolute beginners. If you still can't answer, the questions like, for example, why does Bitcoin have value, right? Okay, this webinar is for you. If you already know the answer to this, please share to someone who doesn't, okay? Use us, leverage us, okay, to help increase the adoption, increase the understanding of cryptocurrencies, starting with Bitcoin tonight at 9 p.m. All right. So great. See you guys tonight at 9 p.m.